bank robbery no one solved. Rain fell like silver needles over London that morning. Pavements glistened, umbrellas fought the wind, and the River Thames rolled dark and heavy beneath the bridges. It was 1986, a city of typewriters, fax machines, and men in long coats reading newspapers that smelled faintly of ink and rain. This is the story of how one mysterious robbery, quiet and perfect, haunted a detective for 30 years, and how one man's return reopened a question that London never answered. The clock inside Harrington Bank ticked toward opening time. Clerks arranged their pens and smiled politely to the early customers who wanted to deposit checks before work. The bank smelled of polish, metal, and paper. Everything seemed perfectly ordinary until at 8:25 a.m., the lights blinked once and flickered out. For 3 seconds the building went silent, no hum, no buzz, no alarm. Then the power came back. A few customers laughed nervously. "Strange morning," said one teller to another. No one yet knew that the alarm had quietly failed. Outside, traffic sprayed rainwater onto the curb. Workers rushed past in long coats and scarves. The gray sky seemed heavier than usual. Somewhere under that sky, 3 people prepared for something that would soon leave the city speechless. At 8:32 a.m., a white van stopped outside the bank. Its windshield was fogged from the rain. 3 figures stepped out, dressed in black coats and wearing old-style gas masks, the kind from wartime photographs. The masks hid their faces completely. Inside, a clerk looked up and froze. The first robber was calm, almost polite. "No one move," he said through the mask. The voice was low, clear, not angry. The staff obeyed. The second robber walked straight to the manager's office, as if he already knew the corridor by heart. The third stood by the main door, checking his watch. They did not shout, did not hit, did not panic. They were fast, too fast. When the manager opened the drawer for the keys, his hands trembled. "How did you?" he began, but the robber lifted a finger, silencing him. 6 minutes later, at 8:38 a.m., the van disappeared into the rain. The security room was empty. Every camera tape reel was gone. The vault door stood open. 2 million had vanished without a trace. Detective Inspector Adele Scott arrived at 9:12 a.m. Her shoes left small wet marks across the marble floor. Her face, sharp and intelligent, showed no emotion, but her eyes, pale green, took in every detail. She was known at Scotland Yard for never giving up, and she hated mysteries that seemed to laugh back at her. The staff explained what happened. Adele listened quietly, then began to move slowly around the room, observing. She noted 3 things. 1, the alarm system failed before the robbery started. 2, the robbers seemed to know the building layout with precision. And 3, near a fallen chair, she found a single piece of paper, a train ticket from a small station 2 miles away. The date, 1 day before the robbery. She turned it over. On the back, someone had drawn a faint mark, like the edge of a map. "Interesting," she whispered. "Almost too convenient." Was the ticket dropped by accident, or left on purpose? That night, London slept under a curtain of fog. Adele didn't. She returned to the bank after midnight, carrying a flashlight and walking boots. The security team had gone home. In the basement, she saw damp walls and stacks of old files. Then something caught her eye, a section of bricks that looked newer. She tapped one with her torch. It gave a hollow sound. Carefully, she pushed. The brick shifted, revealing dark space behind. A tunnel, narrow, muddy, smelling faintly of oil and earth. She crouched down and followed it. Her hands brushed cold, wet stone. The path seemed endless. Finally, 20 meters later, she found the exit, a metal grate leading to the edge of an underground railway track. Someone had spent months digging it. But how? No one nearby had ever reported noise, vibration, or workers. The tunnel was a masterpiece of silence. Adele stared through the grate as a train roared past, showering her with dust. Now the train ticket made sense, at least partly. But if the robbers escaped this way, where did they go after? Over the next week, Adele interviewed staff, engineers, and locals. Everyone said the same. They had noticed nothing unusual. Then someone mentioned the old Anchor pub a few streets away. Workers from the area often came there. When Adele visited, the wooden floor creaked under her shoes. The air smelled of beer and smoke. The owner, Mr. Clegg, wiped a glass and leaned closer. "You're talking about the bank job, aren't you?" he said. "I remember a group of blokes who came every Wednesday. Quiet men, always the same table. They talked about blueprints and timing." "What kind of blueprints?" Adele asked. "Papers with lines. Maps, maybe. One of them was a postman, Lewis Hale, I think his name was. Nice fellow, polite, stopped coming right after the robbery." Adele's mind raced. A postman knew the city's routes, the doors, the small timings of people's lives. A perfect spy. She found Hale's address the next morning. It was a modest terraced house near the river. The front door was locked, but through the dusty window she could see boxes, an empty chair, and a thin layer of engine oil on the floor. Then she noticed a photo hanging crookedly on the wall, a snapshot of a white van. The house was empty, silent, as if someone had left in great hurry. Was Hale the mind behind the robbery, or was he another mask, a name borrowed by someone else? Weeks passed. Newspapers called it the Phantom Robbery. The city was fascinated by its perfection, by how quietly it had been done. Adele continued chasing shadows. Every clue dissolved like smoke. Then, 3 weeks later, a call reached her office. A fisherman near the edge of a small lake outside London had found something strange. A vehicle under the water, just visible through the fog. When the divers pulled it up, Adele's heart leapt. The white van. Inside, 6 gas masks, 3 empty money bags, a map covered with red circles. One circle was around Harrington Bank, another around what looked like a post office, and several others around different points across the city. But the van was completely empty of people. No fingerprints, no bodies, no sign of the money. The newspaper headlines exploded again. "Van found, mystery deepens." Had there been another target? Had this robbery only been a rehearsal? Adele worked days and nights until, finally, higher officials ordered her to close the case. Too expensive. No progress. Let it go. But Adele never did. Years turned into decades. Adele retired, her hair turning silver. Her once sharp eyes softer now, yet the memory of that rainy morning never left her. Sometimes, when she crossed a London street, she thought she heard the faint echo of a train deep beneath her feet and smelled that same quiet oil. 30 years later, London was a different city. Neon lights glowed above the Thames. Phones buzzed in every hand. The old Harrington Bank had become a bright cafe painted in cream and gold. Young people came for lattes and muffins, never guessing what had happened there in 1986. On one wall hung a black and white photograph. 3 men in suits standing proudly outside the bank, the old sign above them. Few customers ever looked at it long. But one man did. Every morning at 8:32 a.m., he arrived in a gray coat. He always ordered the same, black coffee, no sugar. He paid with an old, faded 50 pounds note that carried the smell of paper older than most of the customers. He would sit by the window, looking out at the morning rain, checking his wristwatch as if waiting for something or someone. The barista once joked, "You must really love this place. You're always here at the same time." He smiled faintly. "Habit," he said. His voice was soft but firm, touched by age and something else, an echo of calm confidence. One afternoon, Adele, now in her 60s, came in by coincidence. She wanted coffee after visiting her daughter nearby. She was slower now but still sharp behind her glasses. When she reached the counter, her gaze stopped on the man in the gray coat. He had just stood to leave. For a second their eyes met. His face was lined but calm. Something flickered behind it, a memory, a recognition. Adele's breath caught. Outside, the rain began to fall again, tapping gently against the glass. The man placed his empty cup down and nodded politely before walking out. She watched him disappear into the crowd, swallowed by umbrellas. Then she looked at the photograph on the wall, the one of the old bank. The figure on the far left, half-shadowed, had a jawline uncannily similar to his. Her hands trembled slightly as she touched the faded image. The cashier behind the counter noticed her pale face. "Are you all right, madam?" Adele blinked, forcing a small smile. "Yes, just remembering something," she said. Outside, the gray-coated man turned a corner and walked down toward the river. From his pocket, he took a small train ticket, yellowed with age, and turned it slowly between his fingers. For a moment, the corner of his mouth lifted, the smallest, quietest smile. Then he tossed the ticket into the Thames and walked away into the fog. The case of Harrington Bank remained officially unsolved. No one ever reclaimed the missing money. No one ever confessed. And every year at 8:32 a.m., someone pays for coffee with a note from another time, a whisper of rain, a memory of silence. Was he one of them? And if so, why come back now? If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel, English Storyverse, and turn on notifications for more true crime English stories that will help you learn English better.